Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to today's episode of How You Get Neft. I'm your host, Louis Rossman. Today we're going to be talking about DNS redirects in Malaysia and why it's a problem. But before we even get into what's going on and why it's a problem and the context behind it, we need to explain the concept of DNS to people who may not know what DNS is in the audience. The TLDR of DNS is like a phone book for the internet. If you want to call Rossman Repair Group because you need a data recovery, you're not going to type Rossman Repair into the dialer of your phone. My phone number for that business is 347-552-2258. You're not going to know what that number is inherently. You simply know that you want to get data recovery at Rossman Repair Group. So you're going to find back in the day a phone book that's going to list all the businesses, everybody's names, and then the phone numbers for those businesses. And the same is true for the internet. When you want to go to google.com, reddit.com, dslreports.com, you're not typing 173.98.192.8 something into your web browser because that is insane. People are not going to remember that. So we have domain names like reddit.com, dslreports.com, and so on and so forth. And a DNS server is then going to take that, look up the IP address that is associated with it, and then send that back to your computer, so that when you want to go to reddit.com, your computer knows I need to go to this IP address on the internet. This is a very important service. It's very important that the government and other third parties do not infringe on your ability to use these services. If you wanted to get your iPhone data recovered at Rossman Repair Group, because we do that service for $200 to $500, and you wind up getting redirected to DriveSavers, who charges you over $2,000 to $3,000 when you have lint in your fucking charge port, that is going to be a serious issue. That is not something that you want. If you intend to go to DriveSavers.com, by all means, go to DriveSavers.com. However, you do not want to go to DriveSavers.com if you were looking for RossmanGroup.com. This is not a good thing. You need the ability to go to the website that you want to go to when you type that website into your browser. DNS servers are what allow that to happen. And you being able to choose which DNS server that you use ensures that you always have the freedom to use the directory of your choice. Use the phone book that you want to use. That's the way it's always been until now. The Malaysian government is trying to get all the ISPs, and their communications ministry is trying to get it so that when you try to use a particular DNS, if you want to use Google's DNS, you want to use Cloudflare's DNS, you want to use these people's DNS, that it's going to be redirected to their own. Imagine that you are looking for the number for Rossman Repair Group, and when you call the number listed in the phone book, you get the Apple Store Genius Bar. That's what they would have the ability to do. And this is something that is a serious problem for anybody that cares about having an internet that actually works in a particular country. Because what this means is that the government would then have the power to keep you from visiting certain websites. But more importantly, they would also have the power to trick you into believing that you are on website X when you are actually on website Y. When you go to Reddit or Bloomberg or New York Times or Breitbart, or whatever the fuck it is you want to read news, you think that you're going to that website when you type it into your browser. But imagine if the government was redirecting your DNS request to their server so that it would go to a website that looks just like it, except it had the information that they wanted you to see. You may not be any the wiser. You may actually believe that you are visiting the website that you intended to visit, when in reality, you're visiting a website that's a complete clone that could have been created by that government, by that communications ministry, by that prime minister. This is a horrible fucking idea. And it is happening in Malaysia right now. If you take a look over here, Malaysia is implementing a DNS block. All third-party DNS will be redirected to TM DNS instead. 1111 and 8888 will return 404. Right now, they're simply blocking these types of DNS. But there's absolutely no reason that this block and redirect could not focus more on being a redirect, which means that if you visit a website, you could very easily be viewing a different website than the one you think you're viewing. And again, you as the user, unless you're insanely tech savvy, might be none the wiser. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go over a little bit of the history of this. I wanted to go over why I think it's happening. I wanted to go over the people involved and just kind of explain the entire story as I see it. I've included a bunch of sources down below for anybody who wants to read all of this stuff. This is from one of the communications ministers when they decided to go back on this process. You can see this over here. I'm not able to read this, and Twitter sucks, so you can't translate it. So I have it translated over here. The issue of online crime, including access to gambling websites, prostitution, pornography, and the like, is of great concern and requires a comprehensive solution. The government will not compromise on this to ensure safety online for Malaysians, especially children and families. However, taking into account the views conveyed through the MCMC Razmi engagement series, as well as from the general public, I have requested that the MCMC rather not proceed with the implementation of the domain name system management routing method. At the same time, MCMC will continue a series of engagements with all stakeholders to obtain views, suggestions, and recommendations to ensure that the objective of a safer internet can be achieved together. Now, it may seem like from this that they have backed down on this, that they are not going to do it. They're going to do it again. And I'll explain to you why. Because the people that were originally against stuff like this are now in power. And those are the people that are pushing for this to begin with. Very often you're going to hear either governments or private companies trying to restrict your freedom and justify it based on protecting people and safety and security. And here you can see that they are invoking a bunch of things like children's safety, online gambling. So this is from one of the ISPs they have there named Maxis. This was their FAQ at the time. Under the current direction, this method helps to block access to websites involved in online gambling, pornography, copyright violations, scams, and other illegal activities. The goal is to create a safer internet experience, especially for vulnerable users such as children and teenagers, by preventing access to inappropriate or dangerous websites. Does using protecting children as an excuse to remove your freedom sound familiar? Have you heard this shit before? Quote from their communications ministry. In a statement late on Saturday, the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, MCMC, denied the measure was draconian, saying it was aimed at protecting vulnerable groups from malicious or harmful content, such as online gambling, pornography, copyright infringement, phishing, or financial scams. And again, protecting your safety is being used to justify the insane censorship of the internet, not just censorship of the internet, but the potential for the government, if they wanted to be able to redirect you to a website of their choosing without you ever being able to tell that you didn't go to the website that you wanted to go to begin with. Ridiculous. Quote from them, the Communications Commission. DNS redirection ensures that harmful websites are blocked, while legitimate websites remain reachable without noticeable disruption. Bullshit. The government has already blocked over 24,000 websites between 2018 and 2024, claiming it's all in the name of safety. It starts with a couple of blocks, and then it turns into you're not allowed to use your own DNS. From October to November 2022, during the general election, the country saw a surge in hate speech and disinformation online, with hardline parties such as the Islamist PAS using racial rhetoric. Blocking public DNS to solve this problem is like beating a baby with a hammer because he won't stop crying and you want to go to sleep. It's not the solution to the problem. It fixes nothing. Race, religion, and royalty. In April, the communications minister followed up by mandating that all social media platforms, including TikTok and Meta's Facebook, tighten their policies on harmful content in a move to curb provocative posts on race, religion, and royalty, referred to as the 3 Rs in Malaysia. Keep this in mind when you hear this from your own government, that the countries that actually propose this stuff and go ahead with it are countries that have laws against being provocative towards royalty. The next time you hear somebody say, well, you have to block this, we have to get rid of this altogether to protect the children, for their safety, for the scams, for the online gambling, for the mean posts, that the people that are actually implementing this are people who have laws against disparaging royalty, that have royalty to begin with. Justifications from the Prime Minister himself, Mr. Anwar Ibrahim. My apologies if I've mispronounced the name. Not apologies to this particular Prime Minister, but anybody else who has the name who's not a dickhead like this guy. I apologize for mispronouncing the name. If you allow racism or fascism to flourish or religious bigotry to have a freehold in this country, then you must anticipate the possibility of friction, racial strife, and religious disharmony. Friction, strife, and disharmony. You know what causes friction, strife, and disharmony? When the government has the ability to block me from not just being able to go to a website I want to go to, but from even knowing if the website that I have visited is the website I intended to visit. That is going to cause some strife and disharmony. Malaysia's decline in the World Press Freedom Index. In May of 2024, Reporters Without Borders released its 2024 World Press Freedom Index, which saw Malaysia fall to 107th place from 73rd the previous year. Quote from the Prime Minister, I don't mind. I don't mind. It doesn't matter if we are downgraded because we are tough against the racists and the religious bigots, said Mr. Anwar on May 27th. His response drew flack from civil society organizations, who said it misrepresented the reasons for the drop in rankings. This is cope. The drop in rankings for press freedom did not go down because they are racial and religious bigots. They went down because you are trying to totalitarianly control the internet within your own country. And do keep in mind, this happened before the DNS redirect. More on that later. Malaysia has more takedown requests submitted to TikTok than every other country. And this is before they blocked public DNS. An Ipsos poll in March 2024 showed that 47% of Malaysians felt the country was heading in the wrong direction, compared with 26% in January 2023, with corruption cited as the main concern. Do keep in mind that all of this happened before they tried to get rid of the concept of public DNS. Quote, Mr. Anwar had said at the Qatar Economic Forum on May 14th that it will be a disaster to expedite reforms by assuming that the elites have all the answers without even interacting with the masses. Yeah, because what the masses want is censored fucking DNS, you piece of shit Prime Minister. I'm sure that that's what they're all clamoring for. This is cope. What the fuck are you talking about, man? You're the Prime Minister. You run the country, bro. You are the elite. What is the Sedition Act? The Sedition Act of 1948 is an act that criminalizes speech, publications, and actions that are deemed to incite hatred, disaffection, or disloyalty against the government or the monarchy. That's the elite. You are the elite. I'm sorry, are we now reclassifying prime ministers, heads of states, monarchs, and royalty as plebs? Yeah, they're the plebs, the regular citizens that are all broke, that want to be able to just go to Reddit or Bloomberg or Breitbart or New York Times. And those are the people. Those are the people that are the real elites. You fake populist cunt. The Sedition Act serves the elite. You being able to say what websites people can and cannot visit is you, the elite, telling normal people what they can do. It is not the will of the people that they not be able to access the fucking internet. Nor is it the will of the people that if millions of them like somebody on TikTok because they criticize your shit-ass government, that they get in trouble for viewing it, or that guy gets thrown in prison because he fucking criticized you. What are you talking about, bro? You're the elite. Shut the fuck up. This has nothing to do with religious bigotry or racial bigotry. It has to do with the fact that you're blocking tens of thousands of sites in the fucking internet and that you are not keeping your promise to institute the civil reforms that you took on the platform of in 2022 when you ran for re-election. Malaysia has submitted more takedown requests to TikTok than almost any other government. And this is before they blocked public DNS. Maybe this has to do with why your rating is going down as much as it has. This is a great question that was asked by OOI space KOK space HIN. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce any of this. I apologize. Forgive me, Malaysians. Why are these reforms suddenly so radical now? Good fucking question, my friend. And let's dig into that. Sanusi as a major threat. Sanusi's popularity. My apologies for mispronouncing your name. The wildly popular Sanusi, who attracts large crowds at his political rallies for his blunt criticisms of the government, could be a major stumbling block for Prime Minister Anwar's bloc to win back the state in the August 12th elections for 6 states. So, Sanusi criticizes the government. He is most popular on TikTok. Malaysian government has issued more takedown requests at TikTok than any other government. Sanusi's TikTok account with 480,000 followers and 5.5 million likes was allegedly deleted last week, with government officials denying that they were behind the move. A new TikTok account was restarted by him over the weekend and gained more than 160,000 followers in less than 24 hours. His original account is now accessible again. So, popular figures criticize the government on a platform like TikTok. Their accounts mysteriously taken down. The government denies responsibility, and then a few weeks later, they, let's just get rid of the idea of public DNS. Really. Sanusi charged under the Sedition Act. Sanusi was on Tuesday charged at the Seliang Sessions Court under the Sedition Act of 1948 over a speech he made at a rally in July 11th, where he is accused of uttering a seditious statement that could incite disloyalty to the rulers. Let me quote that shit again. Charged over a speech he made at a rally where he is accused of uttering a seditious statement that could incite disloyalty to the rulers. These are the people that use safety, security, gambling, scams, the children, as an excuse to take away your ability to have access to an open internet. Keep that shit in mind. Sanusi's speech criticizing the royal family led to charges under the Sedition Act, a law that Anwar had promised to abolish. Do keep in mind that in his campaigns for the past 25 years, he has spoken against this act. Now that he is in power, he is happy to use that act against his political opposition or people that complain about him. And when there are platforms where these criticisms of his government from these particular individuals that challenge him become the most popular and widely viewed, those are the platforms that wind up getting the most of his ire. This act was supposed to be abolished as part of Anwar's reform agenda, but it's now being used to silence his political opponents. His backpedaling on the Sedition Act as part of his government's broader trend of censorship and control. In my opinion, this person is salty that people are criticizing him on the internet. So first, we're going to issue takedown requests. Then we're going to start blocking sites. Then I'm going to try to take control of DNS. He ran on a platform of protecting civil rights, freedom of the press, free speech. And now he's doing a complete about-face. He's saying, I don't care. As long as we're fighting the racial and religious bigots, who cares about freedom of the press? Who cares about those rankings? I don't. Clearly, he doesn't have principles, so as his government continues to be criticized, I would not be surprised if they tried to implement this again. The only reason that they took it away is because of a lot of public backlash. But like many things in America, there's a lot of public backlash against a particular law, a particular thing. It gets swept under the rug. 6 or 18 months later, it gets passed through in some sort of bullshit omnibus package, and most people aren't any the wiser until 5 or 10 years later when it starts massively fucking with their own personal life. I hope that the people in Malaysia continue to be vigilant, continue to voice their opposition to this. And above all, I hope people in America are in full support. It can happen here. It can happen in the EU. It can happen in America. There are lots of politicians that try to propose, again, like the type of laws that I was talking about in this channel that are being proposed in the EU that would make applications like Signal fundamentally unusable. Not even out of malicious self-interest, simply because they have individuals that are, I was about to say elected, but I forgot that's not how the EU works, that don't understand technology of the internet. Imagine if these people actually had malicious intent. You combine malicious intent with complete lack of understanding of technology, and you get this. This could happen here. All the words that you hear being used here are the same words that you'll hear in our country or the EU when it comes to restricting freedom on the internet. And further, I hope you can see here just how transparent this shit is. 25 years of principles go out the window the moment somebody's getting a little bit of criticism on the internet. As he said, in his own words, it would be a disaster to expedite reforms by assuming that the elites have all the answers without even interacting with the masses. What happened to 25 years of saying these reforms needed to get done? As Mr. Hin said, why are these reforms suddenly radical now? They're radical because people are criticizing you on the internet, and you are salty about it. That's all it takes for somebody to do an about-face on their principles for 25 years. And bet your ass that it can happen here, and it can happen in the EU. Every single one of the words here about protecting the children and safety and bigotry and everything else online and scams and gambling and porn, you've heard this used before to restrict freedom on the internet here. These are the types of people that actually do get things like public DNS banned. People in countries where it is illegal to provoke royalty. People who are aggravated when their political opposition made a point and dunked on them on the internet. So fuck it, let's just censor the internet. They're going to use this as the excuse. Stuff like this will be the pretext for it. It can happen here. It can happen in the EU. Keep that in mind. If you don't support the people in Malaysia when they're clamoring on for freedom of the internet, who's going to support it when you need it to be supported where you live? Something to think about. Something to think about. That's it for today. And as always, hope you learned something. I'll leave a bunch of links in the comments down below, I mean the description down below, for anybody who's interested in reading up on all of this. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.